There are moments on live television that stop a room dead. The kind where seasoned judges glance at each other like they can't believe what they're hearing. In 2017, a 9-year-old girl from Hong Kong walked out onto the America's Got Talent stage and created exactly one of those moments. What followed her 15 minutes of fame, though, is a story most people never got to see, one involving a mystery disqualification, a father under fire, and a young girl quietly building something far beyond what the cameras ever captured. Celine Tam was born on November 27, 2007, in Hong Kong. Her father, Steve Tam, was a vocal coach and the owner of singing academies. And from the moment Celine showed any interest in music, he was all in. By the time she was 3 years old, formal vocal training had already started. She performed publicly for the first time at age 4. What makes the origin story stick, though, is the detail her family dropped on the AGT judges when she introduced herself. She had a younger sister, her name, Dion, as in Celine and Dion, both daughters named after the Canadian icon their parents had apparently worshipped for years. Simon Cowell's face said it all. In Hong Kong and mainland China, Celine had already been building a reputation long before any international audience knew her name. At age 5, she entered a competition called Let's Sing Kids in China and held her own against older competitors. In the years that followed, she racked up 8 singing championships in a single year, a stat that sounds almost impossible for a child still in primary school. The nickname that followed her everywhere was Little Giant Lung, which tells you everything you need to know about the kind of voice she was carrying around in that small frame. By 2015, a clip of Celine performing a duet of You Raise Me Up with a young Canadian singer named Jeffrey Lee on the show Little Big Shots circulated across Chinese and international platforms and pulled in extraordinary numbers. It wasn't her AGT moment, but it was the first signal to a global audience that this kid was something different. Here's something most Celine Tam coverage quietly skips over. Before she ever set foot on the AGT stage, she had already taken a shot at Britain's Got Talent. She competed in Season 10, which aired in 2016, and she made it past her initial audition. Her performance wasn't even televised, but she advanced. Then, for reasons that were never publicly disclosed, she was disqualified before the live shows. Her name appears on the official BGT disqualified contestants list. No explanation was ever given. The show moved on. The public never really noticed, and Celine's team stayed quiet about it. Whether it was a procedural issue, an eligibility question, or something else entirely, is something neither the show nor the Tam family has ever confirmed. What it does tell you is that the road to AGT wasn't a straight shot. There was a stumble nobody talked about, a door that closed without warning, and then a decision to get back up and try again on a different stage, an ocean away. In the summer of 2017, Celine walked out in front of 4 judges on America's Got Talent Season 12. She was 9 years old. She told Mel B her name, mentioned her sister Dion, and the panel already knew where this was going. Simon Cowell asked what she was going to sing. Her reply, Celine Dion, duh, got the first laugh of the night. And then she opened her mouth and sang, My Heart Will Go On, and the laughter stopped. All 4 judges gave her a standing ovation. Howie Mandel, Mel B, Heidi Klum, and Simon Cowell all voted yes. Cowell, who is not exactly known for handing out compliments freely, joked backstage that it couldn't possibly have been her singing. It was that kind of performance. She advanced to the judge cuts round and performed Michael Bolton's How Am I Supposed to Live Without You? Guest judge Laverne Cox pressed the golden buzzer, sending Celine straight to the live shows in a cascade of glitter. At that moment, she became the youngest solo contestant in AGT history to receive a golden buzzer, 9 years, 8 months, and 9 days old, narrowly breaking a record that Angelica Hale had set just weeks earlier. In the quarterfinals, she performed When You Believe by Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey, and received another standing ovation from Heidi Klum. In the semifinals, she chose How Far I'll Go from Moana. It was a strong performance, but the public vote didn't go her way. She was eliminated alongside the Pompeo family, and ventriloquist Darcy Lynn Farmer went on to win the whole season. After the show aired, the real Celine Dion sent a personal tweet congratulating her young admirer and invited Celine and her family to attend her Las Vegas residency as guests. For a 9-year-old who'd been named after this woman and had grown up singing her songs in the back of her father's car, that had to hit differently than any trophy could have. The moment Celine's audition went viral, the attention didn't stay focused on just her. Steve Tam stepped into the light right alongside his daughter, and not everything that came with it was flattering. The first wave of criticism came from within Hong Kong's entertainment community. A prominent local actress and arts educator named Nancy Sit publicly stated that Steve had volunteered as a mentor at her arts center years earlier, and then quietly began pulling her students away to enroll them in his own private singing program. She described his conduct as morally questionable and said she had stayed silent until the story leaked after Celine's fame exploded. When asked whether Steve had ever apologized to her directly, Nancy Sit said no, and then laughed. Then came questions about his credentials. Steve had long gone by the name Dr. Steve, which many people naturally assumed meant a doctorate in music. When pressed, it emerged that his PhD was in business administration from a university in the Philippines, not music. Steve addressed this publicly, insisting he had never directly claimed a music doctorate and that people had simply assumed. He said he originally used the doctor title when running a headhunting firm before he pivoted to running singing schools. A third line of questioning centered on dates listed on his website for singing competition victories that appeared to have conflicting timelines. His response was that it had been 20 to 30 years, and his memory of the details was imperfect. He publicly promised to correct the errors. To top it all off, almost immediately after Celine's audition went viral, Steve announced the release of his own music album. For many observers, that timing felt like more than coincidence. He did address all of it in a public statement. He pledged to be a good father, acknowledged his shortcomings, and said that his children had given him an opportunity to grow as a person. Whether that satisfied his critics was another matter. What makes the situation complicated is that nobody disputes what he built in Celine. The training was real. The results were undeniable. The question that lingered, and still lingers, is where the line sits between a devoted father-coach nurturing a genuine talent and a parent who saw an opportunity and pressed it hard. After AGT, rather than chasing the American entertainment circuit, the Tam family made a decision that stood out from the typical child star playbook. They went home. Celine returned to Hong Kong to finish her schooling, and for a stretch of time she largely stayed out of the international spotlight. Then in 2019, she surfaced on the World's Got Talent special held in China, a global all-stars edition of the Got Talent franchise. This time, she didn't perform a cover. She performed an original song called Who I Am. She earned a golden buzzer. She reached the top 8. She didn't finish in the final 2, but that wasn't really the point. The achievement that came out of that appearance was a record that still stands. Celine became the first person from Hong Kong and China to receive golden buzzers on 2 separate Got Talent franchise competitions. She had gone from an unknown kid covering Celine Dion to a young artist performing her own material on an international stage, and she'd done it before she was even old enough to drive. By 2025, Celine was 17 years old and living in California with her family in the Pacific Palisades area. Her YouTube channel had grown past 1.1 million subscribers, built largely on covers but increasingly featuring original content. She had been posting videos covering artists like Adele, and her vocal development from the 9-year-old on the AGT stage was audible to anyone who went back and compared the two. She's been enrolled in the Academy for the Talented at the University of Hong Kong, which points to a family that kept their word about putting education first. Her Instagram account, which sits at over 200,000 followers, still notes in the bio that it's run by her parents. A small but telling detail about how carefully managed her public image remains, even now. She still performs at charity events and public appearances. She's done work with organizations focused on education access. She still posts, still sings, and still has an audience that followed her from that 2017 stage and never fully left. What she hasn't done is blow up in the way the entertainment industry might have pushed her to if she'd stayed in Los Angeles after AGT and let the machine have its way with her. Whether that was the right call is something only she can answer years from now. Here's the thing about Celine Tam that tends to get buried under the clickbait about tragic endings and dark secrets. There is no tragedy here. What there is nuance. A genuinely gifted kid who was put on stage very young, trained hard by a father whose own motives weren't always above question, navigated international competition, faced a disqualification that nobody explained, bounced back, earned a record nobody else holds, and then chose school over celebrity. That's not a tragedy. That's actually a more interesting story than a simple rise and fall. The question of what she becomes next, as a performer, as an artist, as a young woman who grew up under millions of views, is still being written. What AGT gave her was a spotlight. What she did after it is the part worth watching.